What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Screen Speak, episode 102 of Screen Speak, the podcast that's all about movies, life, and so much more. As usual, this is Jordan Anderson, the host and owner of this podcast. Jeez, owner. Big word. Lot to live up to on that one, so I guess I better deliver, right? Well, it is true. I do own this thing, I run this thing, I make it happen. However, I would like to point out that this podcast and my owning it means really nothing without you, the listeners. So thanks very much for being here, checking out this episode, and in general, showing your support and being a champion for the world of movies, art, and entertainment. While you're here, do take a moment to hit that follow button on whatever it is that you're listening to this on. If you happen to have some extra time beyond that, certainly check out the podcast on its Instagram and leave a rating for the show if you're feeling so inclined, or maybe generous. I don't know, could be both. Before I get too ahead of myself in this intro, let me first address to you all why you're getting not one, but 2 new episodes in 1 week for this show. For one, I found the time to be able to do it. I mean, that's the most obvious one, right? Which is not always the case for me, given the amount of time that it can take on the back end to get a quality episode fully produced and released, while also maintaining that little thing I have called a life. That said, the main real reason that this is happening is because this episode's timing is particularly important, because I'm using it to help plug 2 filmmakers' special live event that they have coming up for a new film that we're discussing on this latest episode called The Last Minute Till Midnight. It's directed by Orton and written by Beau Batterson. Now, I'm pretty sure you can venture a guess as to who my guests are now. Yep, you called it. It's Orton and Beau Batterson. So Orton is a filmmaker from the Midwest and is also the owner of his own production company, Dream City Cinema. He's been around a long time in the independent film scene, in particular in the Midwest, for quite some time. He's worked his way around various aspects of the industry, doing everything from floor directing at a local news station, and even at one point working as an assistant editor at the world-famous comedy club, The Second City. And if you're not familiar with The Second City, or just Second City in short, it's been a starting or jumping off point for many upon many famous comedians and actors, including the likes of Alan Arkin, Harold Ramis, Bill Murray, John Candy, John Belushi, Catherine O'Hara, and a hell of a lot more. I'm pretty sure Alan Alda even came from there at one point. But anyways, Adam works steadily as a freelance filmmaker, and he has directed several short and feature films. One of the largest ones that I would say he's been a part of in recent memory is a film called Amelia 2.0. So that was a film in the Midwest that was received very well upon its release and starred the likes of a few well-known character actors that you've probably recognized or seen in various other larger studio film releases. And if you're curious about the movie, it is on YouTube, and it's there, I should mention, entirely for free. I'll include a link in the description for that movie, along with all the other ones that you'd come to expect for both Adam, for Beau, this film, everything. So check all that stuff out in the description of this episode. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Beau. So Beau himself is a digital media specialist that's spent several years working in marketing for television stations, and even takes the time, don't know where he finds it, to be an instructor for young entrepreneurs that are looking at bettering their businesses via marketing, web, and social media solutions. He's also a content creator and filmmaker himself that has his own YouTube channel, as well as creates his own short films, web comics, and much more. So as I said early on, the real reason for the timing of this episode is due to a special event that both Adam and Beau are hosting online this week. The event is a live watch party for the unveiling of their newest short film, The Last Minute Till Midnight. It takes place on Thursday, November 16th at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. The short itself is under about a half hour. I think it's about 26 minutes, give or take. So it's certainly doable in terms of length, though I would point out that length is not something that really deters somebody like myself. I don't give a shit how long something is. If it's a good story and it needs to be that long, that's the way it should be. That's how the filmmakers designed it, period. But again, this one's not that long, so you really should have no trouble checking it out. Now, as far as the short itself goes, it's a black and white noir film, and that's perfect for those of you that are enthusiasts for the genre, and maybe even good for some sci-fi fans out there. Wait a minute, did he just say sci-fi and noir? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Only one real way that you can find out. You'll have to watch it. So again, this event's going to take place this Thursday, November 16th at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Beau himself is going to be in the chat and keeping tabs on you all and making sure that the whole thing runs smoothly, but mainly he's there to take questions that you may have during the film or afterwards, so certainly ask questions to him. He'll be most pleased if you do. Should be a good time, and for sure an exciting one for both Adam and Beau. Now, I better tell you a little bit about the story before we let the conversation play out here. So I'll read the synopsis for you, and then I'll give you a little bit of the trailer, and we'll go on from there. It's the height of the Red Scare, and the doomsday clock is inching towards midnight. In a city riddled with crime, the last honest journalist's obsession to expose a corrupt politician's gonna put her at odds with some forces that she's never imagined. Now, why tonally the narration on that changed a lot, I really couldn't tell you. It was just how it came to me in the moment, and I'm not gonna go back and edit it because the hell with it. I just want to release this as is, and that's really the story of the movie. But I should definitely put the trailer in because that's going to speak a lot louder than my shitty narration of the story. So here's the trailer for The Last Minute Till Midnight.
This city stinks. Not like other cities in America that stink of commerce. The stink that hangs in the stagnant air of this city reeks of the scum of its wretched population.
Honey! Representative Tyler is no red.
The doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight.
We are doing great work. We are going to fix this world.
We're the Fourth Estate. It's our duty to keep the government in check.
Don't be so naive.
This is insane. I've lost my mind.
You're not insane. This world is insane.
That's enough! What are you?
If that doesn't set the mood for their short, I really don't know what will at this point. So be sure to check out the short once it drops on YouTube, and definitely take a moment to check out Adam and Beau live on Thursday, November 16th at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time to watch it alongside with them. All there's really left to say at this point is this. Enjoy the conversation, and be sure to check these guys out and see what they got going on in the world of entertainment after this episode. All that embarrassing stuff that you just said, I'm so glad that we got that out of the way
Nice.
before I hit the button. Okay, so gentlemen, welcome to Screen Speak. I appreciate you guys coming on to the podcast and talking about yourselves and the projects that you're working on. Also I want to give a shout out to Beau first. Because he, I believe, was sort of the person that reached out to me first. I think you talked with, was it Michael, I want to say? And like, he's like, hey, like, talk to this guy. He's all right. And I don't know how it happened, but.
Yeah, between Michael Meinhardt and Jake Daniels at Mediaverse, you come highly recommended.
Oh, that's nice.
As far as a burgeoning name in the Iowa film community, as far as being able to come on and promoting a project. You're gaining lots of friends in this small little band that we've kind of started to develop here in Iowa.
It is the funny thing, though, about the filmmaking community, and I don't know if it's probably not exclusive to Iowa, but it is really a tight-knit kind of tribe, if you will. I mean, like, people really kind of band together quickly when they're like, oh, man, I'm not alone doing this stuff. Like, there's other crazy nut jobs like me that want to make these projects come to fruition. And especially in the Midwest too, I think there's like almost a tighter bond that comes with that, because you're not in that sort of, creative market that, people just assume the opportunities are everywhere. So it's like when you find it, you just gotta stay together. And hello, Mr. Adam. I acknowledge Beau, but I didn't even say hello to you. So hello.
No, that's okay. I'm here.
You are here. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to jump into our conversation first, talking with the both of you just a bit about, some background on you guys so that you're giving my audience some context as to who you are, what you do, all that good stuff. So starting with you, Adam, because I started with Beau first. Totally random thing, and I know that people can't see this. I just have to shout it out. They're wearing Blockbuster and Pixar shirts. It looks really nice. Anyways, Adam. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, like, both of you in general are filmmakers because it's so sometimes like difficult to just narrow someone down to you're a director, you're a
Right.
writer. I did some research on the both of you guys, and Adam, you've done directing, you've done writing, you've done music composition, you've done editing, um, wear a lot of different hats, so to speak. So I'm just gonna say you're a filmmaker. But
That's
if you want
probably
to
the
tell,
best. Yeah.
if
Best
you
way
want
to
to tell the
describe
folks
it.
about yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, well, as you said, I'm based out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Here, I went to school in Chicago a couple years back. I returned back to Cedar Rapids because of an investment opportunity to make a little feature film that I worked on with Beau called Amelia 2.0. It was based off of a play called The Summerlin Project. Since we kind of wrapped that up and spent like roughly 2 years in post, I, had another kid, and I now have 2 children, and I kinda went into the freelance video production field, while working on my own movies here, to sort of continue to fulfill my soul. And that's kinda what I've been doing, and, Beau and I have collaborated on a lot of stuff. In 2016, we shot this, little noir sci-fi crossover called The Last Minute to Midnight, which we're excited to talk about, and it should be released here pretty soon. Um, and as well as a whole bunch of other different things. Beau has worked on web videos. We have both taught at Hawkeye Community College. We're deeply ingrained in the film community here. And so, like you said, it's a tight knit community, and it's very helpful to meet and work with other people.
And I gotta ask you about the hat, Dream City Cinema, because I had it
Yeah.
in my notes here. I'm like, I gotta talk about that, but hey, you're wearing a hat, so I can talk about it. So that's your, I guess, for lack of a better word, production company.
Yep. Yeah, so I built this, it's sort of the business entity that, uh, over which I do everything. So freelance commercial production, B2B videos, including my own personal cinema projects. So hopefully the plan is someday that's like the umbrella with which I release like bigger stuff. And hopefully, I mean, I'm trying to get into the self distribution thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's the way I keep everything copacetic with the government, so to speak.
Two questions on the Dream City Cinema, but if you had to quickly tell me what the inception of it was, I'm always curious how actually people come up with names for their projects or just their companies and things like that. Because naming something I find to be probably one of the most difficult things in the world because everything's built around the name, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I it's kind of a funny story. So it was when we were working on Amelia 2.0. We were in post. My wife had recently decided to go back to work full time. I was a stay-at-home father, trying like working on a little laptop, doing about 550 different visual effects shots for the movie. Um, just strained, pulled in so many directions, and so I'm also watching this like little toddler at the time, and my doctor prescribed to me these anti-anxiety pills. um, I don't know if this is gonna be okay for your pocket. You're just gonna have to listen and decide. So,
Yeah.
he gave me, uh, I forgot what it was, some sort of Xanax type,
Mm,
medication, and I took it for the first time. I had no idea it would knock me out, and so I passed out. Fortunately, my kid was in the room. We had a little fence set up, and everything was fine. I wasn't like letting him wander the house, but I immediately sort of had this dream where I was falling through the sky, and a lot of people have that dream. They're falling for some reason, it doesn't make sense, but I just had that sensation of falling. It was very, very vivid,
mhm.
and as I'm getting close to the ground, it's like this sort of New York, Chicago sort of place. Uh, I start smelling like the sewage of the city, and that's the thing, if you've ever been to a big city for the first time and you're not used
Right.
to it, you kind of notice the smell of the city. And each city has their own sort of, uh, characteristical smell, and anyways, as I'm getting closer, I'm smelling that, and, right as I hit the ground, I wake up, and I realize my son, has soiled his diaper and taken it off and rubbed it all over the walls and all over my face.
Wow.
And like I'm really sorry about that. It was literally in my mouth. And I immediately started screaming and I called my wife. I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And just the state of being like awakened this way was just like I don't know how to prepare people for that. Like people who have a new child, they're like, "What's parenting going to be like?" It's like
Yeah.
there's no way. Like I could have never been prepared for that moment.
I
And
don't know.
so
I read
No.
one of those books that's pretty common. It's in a lot of dad books.
I mean, I will say, I mean, one, I appreciate just right off the get-go, your just blunt honesty about the
yeah,
quite literally messy nature of parenting on that, which I'm not a parent myself. It's in the plan one day to get there. But yeah, that's a hell of a way to get the inception for a business venture
yeah.
is baby crap. Yeah.
So I mean, it's loosely connected. Dream City, like one of my favorite production companies has been DreamWorks. And so
Sure.
I kind of formed the name right around that time. It just sort of been lingering in the back of my head. And when I finally decided to go freelance, it was like, this is the name that I'm going to use. And I just like the way it rolled off the tongue. So
No, I
nothing.
like it. It's nice.
Yeah, yeah. That I probably used up way too much time explaining that story,
No.
but that's that was the
There's a
honest
lot to
answer.
it. There's a lot to it. It's not like, somebody's just like, oh, I'm going to start a company one day and just go freelance and call it this. And it's just that. Like, it is never that cut and dry and simple. But Beau,
Yes,
moving on
sir.
to yourself here, you, I would also say, fall under that broad filmmaker umbrella. Because again, I don't like to just narrow someone down, especially us creatives, to just one thing. I've seen you've done editing. You've done animation, I think, as well. You've been a
Yeah,
writer.
sort of something
Um,
like animation.
well, you've done animation. You've done some illustrations, I think, as well. Obviously, we talked before we even hit the record that you've, dabbled in the YouTube space, or you're on the YouTube space because you have a backdrop that complements that.
Yep.
And you also, looks like, have your own media company yourself, or freelance options that you have, because it's just Batterson Media,
Yeah,
right?
Batterson Media. That's the government name. That's just
The
for
government name.
yeah. Anytime I take up a freelance job here and there, that's kind of what it has to get funneled through. I don't
Sure.
nearly market myself as well as Adam does when it comes to that.
It could be a full-time job to do the marketing. I mean,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
God, it sucks.
Yeah. So, I've got 2 degrees in film and video production. One from the University of Northern Iowa, another from this school in Florida called Full Sail. Came back to
I've
Iowa.
heard of Full Sail. I
Yeah,
know they
it's
offer online course options, and also shout out to UNI because that's my alma mater as
nice.
well. Went there for graphic design.
Nice. So yeah, came back to Iowa, started working in local news, which is where I met Adam.
My wife's grabbing her computer. 1 second.
No worries.
No worries.
she texted me, and she was
Hey.
and she was just like, "Hey," she's like, "I'm so sorry, but I gotta grab my computer." And I'm like,
While
"It's
we were in the
it's
middle of this
fine."
interview, my wife was like, "Can you hand me the Apple code that pops up on your computer so I can install Apple TV?" I'm like, "Mom, Liz, come on."
You're like, of all the times, what are
It's
you
fine.
doing?
No, wives.
No,
No, that
you're
goes.
good.
Have a great conversation.
Honestly, I've talked about this Michael's episode because I recorded one with him, Beau, and I
Yep.
haven't gotten it up yet, but we talked about, I know, at one point how it's all cheesy and stuff, but you really got to have the support of the wives if you're married to be
Oh,
able
of course,
to
yeah.
have investment in this. Otherwise, they're just like, what the hell are you doing? Like I wouldn't probably be able to have my passion and enthusiasm without her backing. So shout out
Yep.
to the wives. Okay, Mr. Beau, back to what you were saying.
Sure. After film school, I came back and started working in local news, which is where I met Adam, working out of Cedar Rapids. Then I did freelance for a long time before kind of finally securing a job in the marketing department at the local TV station here in Waterloo. And I've been working there for quite some time while still picking up various film and video projects. When I went to school, I thought I was going to be a director, and then I met Adam, and I was like, he's way better at this than I am. Like, I'll just work with him. Like, I'll write stories and like give them to him, and he'll make them look much better than I ever would. And then picked up fell kind of into producing because like someone's gonna make it. So like if you want to tell your story,
Yeah.
like nope, so that's how I got into producing, and then got into editing because it paid the bills. Like I've got a YouTube video where I talk more about it, but basically, I got hired one time to be just like an extra set of hands on a video shoot, freelance, and then after the shoot, they were like, "Hey, can you edit this for us?" And I, had bills, so I was like, "Yes, I can edit this for you." And like they'd leave, like I knew enough to get by until they left the room. And then I would like Google and hop on YouTube and like figure out how to edit, and somehow that has slowly turned into like the main part of what I get hired to do as far as editing.
There's a
And
whole. Sorry, go ahead.
and then like that kind of once you're in editing, then you kind of get to a point where like you need to learn a little bit of After Effects, or you need to learn a bit of Audition and stuff. So that's how I kind of fell into that.
Well, to go back to what you were saying, Jordan,
Mhm.
we're Beau and I being kind of this sort of nebulous thing where we wear a lot of hats. I think that's just sort of a result of today's digital age. You sort of have to be to get a film made.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was going to say, and also just saying that there's a sub conversation within this one, just talking about the notion, I guess, that a person gets where they know they're a creative at some point in their life, and they're taking appropriate steps to get to this perceived vision of themselves and whatnot. But as the technology and as the marketplace changes with how film distribution and just all the things work about it, I do find it's not healthy to over plan or get over stuck on a vision of yourself. Like, when Beau's just
Yes.
like, I see myself as this, but then he kind of fell into this because it's like, yeah, I got bills to pay, right?
Yeah.
You do have to be flexible and open to just where life, for lack of a better word, is going to take you on your creative journey. I mean, unless like you're like some auteur, like right from the get-go, that you're like, I came out of the cradle and I just knew, I'm like, I'm gonna be Martin Scorsese and I'm just gonna do this. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I feel like it is an evolution.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And if you have that sort of privilege and if you have those connection, like if you're the son of Ivan Reitman, for
Sure.
example, that will definitely open up the doors. You still have to have the talent. Jason Reitman is very talented,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that helped. you know,
That's a whole other conversation too, where it's like there's a nepotism thing with that, but then there's also like, I mean, there's good talent there. I mean, your father or your family is, person made Ghostbusters. I mean, for God's
right?
sakes, like there's some education to be had there.
Yeah. Yep.
But we got to talk about your guys'. Is it a short, the last minute to midnight, or is it like a feature? Because
It's a
I
short.
guess I wasn't okay. It's a short. How
Yeah.
long is it?
It's just under 20 minutes.
Okay, now I want to talk about this movie, of course, because you guys have an event coming up here that it's going to be released. Do you want to pitch that event, and then we can just dive into the actual short itself?
Sure, absolutely. So it's been a long road to get here, since we first started shooting in 2016. Uh, but we're finally releasing it online after a long period of post production and a festival run and stuff. It's finally going to be released online for free for everyone to watch on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Beau Batterson Presents. Its official launch that we're having kind of like a launch party for is Thursday, November 16th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll be live in the chat if anyone's wants to talk or have any questions. Yeah, it'd be great if people would tune in. If people would tune in and check it out.
Now, first question I have about, just kind of going back to the start of this thing. You said this has been basically worked on, for lack of a better word, since 2016. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we're obviously in 2023 right now. I guess what's the road been like for this thing? I mean, like if it goes way back to 2016, I mean, take me back there. What happened with this?
Well, a couple of things happened. We This was a few months before the 2016 presidential election. The
Hmm.
political landscape changed, for better or for worse, however you want to look at it. That definitely affected how the film developed in post production. We rewrote the ending. We looked at what was happening in the political climate in America and just, sort of how America was being viewed in the world and everything. And uh,
For people who don't know about our story,
yeah,
it is very political from the political landscape of the 1950s. It
Okay.
deals with like the Red Scare and a corrupt politician and a journalist trying to expose the truth in
Hmm.
under the kind of umbrella of the looming threat of communism and the the nuclear fallout of an arms race at that time.
And you're saying that there's some sort of connection to something in
Yeah, you know what?
2016, huh?
It's like
well,
those who
yeah.
don't pay attention to history are doomed to repeat it. So
Well, and that's
Fair
it. Like
point,
this is
yeah.
this is a common type of topic that has been going on, and I'm sure in other countries too. It's just like there's always people that are searching for power, and just the idea of how power corrupts.
Mhm.
There's been certain politicians who didn't care for it. Then they experienced that power. They said, "Hey, I kind of like this," and then they continue to pursue it. And
Mhm.
so this film kind of touches on a lot of it. But what going back to your question, Beau can probably describe more about what the film is as
Mhm.
writer and everything. The reason why it took so darn long to get this film done is just uh, filmmaking at this level. It requires a lot of mental stamina and motivation, and sometimes you lose that. Um,
Mhm.
Especially if you don't have a direct source of income that's directly, related to the film that you're working on. You have to do it in your spare time. Life has to sort of move around and fit the puzzle pieces of when you get the film completed. And that was a huge thing for this. Most of the shots in it are visual effects shots.
Mhm.
They're not only green screen, but 3D modeling had to be done to create the background and stuff. And while the characters are on green screen, they still many shots they had to be rotoscoped out. So stuff naturally took time. Even if
Mhm.
we had a staff full of people that we were paying to rotoscope it, it still would have taken a while. So um,
So what is
ultimately,
sorry, go ahead.
it's just like the amount of post production work on it combined with the fact that none of us were being paid. And we're
Mhm.
doing this purely out of the the soul feeding that comes with independent filmmaking.
It's very interesting that you actually bring that up, Adam, because that was something I was gonna. I'll save it towards the end of the conversation, and I promise I'll throw it in there. I've done that before. Where I'm like, I'll get to it at the end, and then it
Yeah.
never actually happens. But I will touch on that. But before I do that, the story of this thing. I mean, you mentioned there's politics and stuff, but I mean, what's like the synopsis of this? Give the audience a pitch of the story itself, because of course I want them to watch it on YouTube when it gets dropped on there.
Well, before I toss it over to Beau on this, I'll just say to me, the movie from a thematic standpoint is very much about how power corrupts people and how us as humans sort of break ourselves into two different camps. There's followers, and then there's sort of the leaders or the one percenters, the people that are above. And this film kind of looks at that secret sort of underbelly to it all of how the leaders basically control things.
Hmm.
Thematically, that's what it's about. Plot wise, Beau is a lot better explaining this.
yeah, so it's like surface level, plot is about Meg Mahoney, played by the amazing Jessica Denny. Um, she's sort of the last honest journalist in this corrupt city. He has this kind of obsession to expose this politician who she seems to believe is doing nefarious activities, is probably a secret communist, and then, goes on some, investigations to expose him that may end up revealing more than she had bargained for.
Okay, I like that, and I also like I always can gravitate to stories where like you have like the one last good person in a sea of corruption and shit. I mean, like there is just something like a almost like an underdog element where like you want them to crawl out from under the circumstance that they're in, and in the noir genre, I feel like that's always something that works really really well when it's pulled off right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is a noir, so I wanted to talk about that, So I'm not sure however, many people that are listening to this are familiar with the genre or have maybe watched something on that. But when I think of noir myself, the very first thing that comes to mind is Blade Runner for me. I mean, that's like a very commercial one. You got the rain, Harrison Ford's grumpy and drunk with his whiskey and hunting down the replicants and everything. It's very sad, and characters are cynical, they're overworked. There's like this kind of world weary quality, I feel like, sometimes to the genre, kind of on the backdrop to the thing. You also have really interesting lighting, I feel like, in the ones, very stark lighting almost, if you will. And then I always feel like in at least the ones that I like, of course, in Blade Runner, it's apparent there's always some sort of like a existential look at sort of the philosophy of the story, or kind of like what's going on in the background. And they're supposed to really kind of be heady movies. They make you think, supposedly long after it. At least that's how it works for me. I'm curious for you guys for this particular look into the noir genre. Were there things, of course, that you borrowed from to put into it, or were you like, I want to kind of try to put my own, methodology behind how people are going to view this movie after they're done watching it?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of tropes in it, and particularly the dialogue Beau has written is definitely stylized. Yeah, looking back, it's been so long since we were kind of in that development process, but I'll let Beau kind of talk about that.
Look, the dialogue was probably the main reason I wanted to write a film noir. I just love it. When I was at UNI, I took a film course taught by Grant Tracy, who's a great writer in his own right. On the film noir, where we just watched a lot of just amazing films from the 40s and 50s. Things like Out of the Past and Laura and The Dark Corner. Just Mildred Pierce. Probably Kiss Me Deadly is probably the one that has the biggest influence on our film, because it's another film that's like about the communists in a mystery box and finding opening up essentially Pandora's box, and the casualties and causations that come out of that. But yeah, so we took a lot of things, and then from the tropes of that, there's like the surface level stuff that comes with film noirs, like you were saying, the stark lighting and what that represents as far as shadows, and the kind of Venetian blind bars on people, what mirrors represent, what smoking represents.
I always like the smoking. I mean, I'm not.
So,
I don't. And it's so funny with that because like I'm not a smoker like at all. But I don't know. There is just like a cool factor, when people are lighting their cigarettes. It's like
one of my favorite things that they would do, because they are also filmed in this period in American history where we fell under the Hays Code, which was where
that's right.
the motion pictures would kind of self-censor themselves. So there are all these like wild rules of what could and couldn't be done. Like if people are going to kiss, it couldn't last longer than 3 seconds, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were going to have a sex scene, it always needed to be implied. And a lot of the ways they would do this would be with cigarettes.
Cigarette.
Yeah. And so a lot of times, like, if someone's going to put out a cigarette and someone comes to light it for them, that's kind of the clue that like that they want to have sex because I'm lighting your cigarette.
Real hot.
And like, a cigarette in someone's mouth is very phallic and whatnot. But yeah, so that's anytime you watch one of those old movies and you see like the cigarette coming up and like who's lighting it for who, or if someone has to light it themselves, someone can't get it lit. Like there's subtext to it.
I'm gonna be paying attention to that so much more now when I go and watch movies that feature smoking.
Yeah, and what's so in my film history and film aesthetics classes, it's been a long time. I'm getting old. But like we could have talked like my professor in that class could have had like a year-long class about it. There's so much that goes into film noir. I think the thing that I sort of took away from it is it's a very, very strong morality tale. You have something called a melodrama, melodrama is sort of like the term is originally based off of like music and stage productions of people singing. Why it's called melodrama, and it's sort of a simplified, wrapped up version of um, what humanity is like, where you
Mhm.
have characters that are very, very obviously bad and then very obviously good. So any Disney animated movie is a classic example of a melodrama. You don't have uh you don't have the characters asking themselves, am I
Mhm.
is what I'm doing good or bad, or what is it's usually always like, okay, clearly you're the good guy and you're the bad guy. And that is what a lot of noirs have sort of presented on the surface. Uh and you have the lighting and the stylism, it kind of borrows from the German chiaroscuro artistic movement of like light and shadow, used to represent good and bad. There's very little grayscale in things, and so some people have argued too that style in cinema kind of evolved from like lower budget productions at the time who didn't have a lot lighting wise, and so it's very, very easy to light high contrast. And so there's a whole bunch of theories on how that sort of look evolved too. But in this film genre noir, it's very, very contrasted. You have heavy shadows, and the Venetian blind effect is always used to great extent, to represent some particular thing that I can't remember off the top of my head. But with our film, we had little tropes. We had, obviously, as Beau mentions, the cigarette, that sort of double speak. They have the double entendres. The the femme fatale character you have.
Mhm.
Uh, there's also like just loads of misogyny in that time frame, like so many things in in the 40s and 50s. So we wanted to play with those kinds of tropes, but at the same time we wanted to turn it on our head, or turn it
Mhm.
on its head. So we have that element of like good and bad, and then we sort of spin it to show that, like, no, we while you might think you're good, your intentions might be good, they might be distorted. Every
Mhm.
every villain was once the hero of their own story. They're in their mind, they're still the hero of their own story. Uh, and so our protagonist Meg Mahoney, who's trying to uncover this sort of big thing happening in the underbelly of the city and trying to get to the bottom of this conspiracy, stumbles upon an opportunity to uh, try to fix things, I guess, is the best way to talk about it without giving things
Mhm.
away. Tries to figure out, or tries to solve the problem, and becomes seduced by the dark side a little bit. I guess I don't. That kind of does give away
And no
the
no
ending a
spoilers,
little
no
bit.
spoilers, yeah.
Yeah. So and there's also more parallels to modern day things that are going around. Conspiracy theories have kind of found a resurgence with the internet. You get a bunch
Yeah,
of
they sure
like-minded
have.
people. In the
Mhm.
40s, I think it was the 40s. So there was this conspiracy theory that all the world's top leaders were lizards. Uh,
Yeah, I've heard that one before,
yeah, and
actually.
you think like, oh, that's ridiculous, but
Yeah,
now we have people who believe crazier things, and so, and I'm not going to name any of them out
yeah.
because I don't want you to get a bunch of hate mail on your show, but um,
Well, the
that,
lizards are already upset you called them out, so
I mean, the
yeah,
lizard
yeah,
community, like they're tight knit. I mean, they're gonna hear this. They're gonna
oh
be
yeah,
upset.
yeah. Not to
um,
say they're not real, but
God, there are so many sub conversations or episodes. I'm gonna have to have you guys back on because there's other things we could definitely talk about. One thing I'm curious about though, because you talked about some of those technical aspects with the intense lighting, all the highly stylized aspects of noir and whatnot, and how it kind of feeds into the whole vibe of the shoot and whatnot. What I'm curious about with so much of this being on green screen, and I saw that you guys have some YouTube videos where like it shows a little bit of behind the scenes, I guess, if you will, kind of showing how everything was set up, and the actors have to engage certainly with their imaginations. What I'm curious about from you, from a director standpoint, Adam, I think that's where this question will stem from. Um, when you're, I guess, trying to work with the actors that you do have, and they are in an environment that's so green screen heavy, and you know that the final look, of course, is going to be very stylized and whatnot, but your actors aren't really, of course, able to see that in the moment. I guess, did you find that challenging, sort of getting them to understand exactly where your kind of creative vision for this was and how you wanted those stylized elements to feed into their performances?
Well, they performance-wise, I think they understood immediately. They're like,
Yeah.
this is not realism. This is heightened, you know, theatrical performance." Especially Angela Billman's character is very much like
Mhm.
the moment she did that first take, I was like, "Okay, she's got it figured out. She's matched the tone of what we're trying to do here."
Mhm.
And I think that stems from her theater ability, and the entire cast, their main jam is theater. And theater has so many little genres where you get to play big characters. And film acting, a lot of modern film, it's subdued, and it has a tone of its own. So I think coming from that theater world, it definitely helped them uh, figure out the
Yeah.
level of
Mhm.
energy that they're
Yeah,
supposed to do.
Jess and Angela and Scott Humiston, who's the third, he's what we would call the heavy in a film noir. They all have just extensive theater backgrounds, and I think just being able to like
Yeah,
play in that world where you are, it is a level of imagination and
Mhm.
make believe to a certain extent being on stage, like the magic of being on stage. I think that helped them kind of be able to come into what was legitimately Adam's basement painted green, and then be able to be like understand in their head where they were at and how to behave
Mhm.
in that environment.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of plays where it's like a set is just a table,
Mhm.
and behind them is just black. And so I think theater actors have a good concept of how to create that world in their head. The other thing that we did, which was really great, is we went through and storyboarded every single shot. I in Cinema 4D actually went and created all the sets and basically uh showed with 3D modeling what the exact final shot would look like. And so we
Mhm.
had that on set. We showed that to actors, and that helped them spatially understand what was going on. There's a scene where Angela Billman reaches over and opens a safe, pulls out something, and for her to see like how the camera's actually seeing it, she knew like where to pick the picture up off the wall and where to move it so that the audience could get a better sense of what she was actually doing.
Mhm.
Um, so, pre-production, that sort of stuff is where that comes in and saves you.
That's really actually, I think, insightful information to be able to share with people, especially for people that just have a fascination, I think, with, the actors side of things as well. But I mean, I think they're on a project like this, the technical side of it really feeds so much into what you're kind of working on with the actors. It's not your traditional thing where they have, a set and costumes and whatnot that they can fully, immerse themselves into. There's definitely I feel like a fine tightrope that you almost have to walk to be able to get them on the same level with you tonally with it, that they're seeing the same vision. But then,
Yeah.
of course, that it's all going to kind of coalesce together in the final product. And I'm sure I should ask this, and then I'll start to wind this down for the sake of time. But could you tell me what the reaction was from the actors in this when they first saw, like, maybe some snippets of the final product with the effects in there? Because I'm always curious about that.
I don't fortunately, I don't unfortunately, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, when did we kinda show it to them? Like, I feel like we sent them, like, rough cuts or
Yeah,
something
that's
online, which
yeah,
I
that they
don't
would
do
have watched
anymore.
it
I wait till the
themselves
film's
and
done to show it to actors, but
Mm.
sorry about what?
oh, they would have watched it themselves probably online because I would imagine when we first sent it out, it was 2020 when everyone was isolating. So we didn't
Mhm.
unfortunately get to see first reactions, but it was nice. We had a little premiere in Cedar Rapids, kind of like a semi private event, and
Mhm.
Jess and Scott were able to come and be part of a Q&A and watch it, and they seemed to really enjoy it. I think my best reaction I ever got from this film was at the Snake Alley Festival, where there's a fellow filmmaker sitting ahead of me. He's just watching it, and there's twist and twist and twist in our movie, and after eventually by like the third twist, he goes, man, this movie's got everything. I think that's my favorite reaction out of anything that's happened with this film. So
That's always interesting when you kind of are hearing those initial first reactions to people seeing something. Especially, I think it's always different actually at a film festival as opposed to at like a just a regular exhibitionist theater experience. Festivals are different crowd altogether. I mean, you have
yeah,
some really serious film nerds and film enthusiasts, film professional filmmakers of all levels kind of attend those things. So yeah, if you hear a compliment like that of just like this has everything and then some, it's like, hey, like mission accomplished. I did it.
yeah.
Right.
So what I want to end this conversation on, because I had other stuff actually I was going to talk with you guys about, but I just want to be accommodating for you guys' time. And I
Well,
did
if you
say,
need more time, I love talking about myself, so
Yeah,
that's
no, I
great.
love talking about nothing more than myself. So
Yeah.
like,
okay, well,
if you got more,
I'll see how long this will go for, but if there's like the cutoff or something, just like, wave your hand and be like, stop. And also, I have a cat that is, oh, he's in a litter box back there. So great. I'm glad the
Okay.
audience gets to hear that.
Yeah. No, that's all right.
Um,
You heard my soiled diaper story, so
that's true. It's like it starts with crap and it ends with crap.
just like my career.
Just kidding. Okay, so I did say I was going to touch on this, and I purposely tried to structure this towards the end of this because I feel like there's a lot of directions that this could go in. So I want to hear from both of you guys on this, okay? Now,
Same time? Do you want us to talk at the same time, or do you want
I
to
mean, that could be an
answer
interesting
after?
audio experience,
Yeah,
everybody just talking
stereo.
over each
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
like as a
I
being in one
demand to be
ear.
mixed into the right channel though.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about from the both of you guys is, Adam, you had brought this up earlier in our conversation, talking about how, and I'm paraphrasing here, of course, essentially that you have to, take sometimes these creative projects and either, of course, financially make them work, but more so from a time structure. You're just like, I gotta, piece this out over however long it's going to take to get this stuff into fruition. And so really kind of what I'm getting at with this is that it takes an awful lot of time to fulfill all the creative dreams and aspirations and whatnot that we want to do. And like we said earlier, you got to pay the bills. If you're a parent, you're a husband, you're a brother, father, daughter. I mean, whatever the hell it is, you have all these other obligations to do. So I guess what I'm curious about is for both of you guys, because I know the creative path is sometimes one of isolation. If you have to work on things, in a dark cave, especially editing and doing that whole thing. Um, how do you guys feed your passion just for continuing to sustain this and just keeping yourself motivated and hungry to still stay, in the industry that you guys are working in?
Yeah. Um, that is such a good question. I mean, I've seriously thought about before, like having a filmmaker support group, or just like open to creators in all aspects. Whether you're a painter, an actor, some sort of filmmaker. It's so vitally important because the odds are not good that any one person is gonna really quote unquote make it or get to a point where their income is immediately sustained by the thing they love doing. That's
Hmm.
just the way it is. Otherwise, a lot more people would jump into acting. And so the first thing I have to say to that is you have to do it out of love. I sort of had a coming to Jesus moment with myself not too long ago where I said, "Do I want to keep doing this?" And like, do I want to do? I'm approaching middle age now, which is freaking crazy to say. And pretty soon my kids are gonna be teenagers, and like I had to say to myself, "Do I wanna keep doing this? There's a chance that this might just be the level that I keep doing it at,
Hmm.
forever. Am I okay with that?" And the answer was finally yes. Like, it is soul feeding to you, like, you love doing it, and it is very, very hard. But every creator has to have that moment where I think they come to the realization of, do I enjoy doing this, potentially never being able to sustain myself from it? And I think if you do and you can continue to do it, you will eventually find some sort of success out of it. And success will mean different things to different people. But talking about family obligations and stuff, you do have to live your life. You shouldn't put your life on hold because of this, because you don't know what direction it's going to go. You might end up doing something you never thought you did, and you have to be open to it. So
Hmm.
yeah, you have to love it, and that's the final answer.
Yeah, no, I think that's all. It's all pretty astute stuff. Beau, want to hear from you, and then I'll jump in.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for anyone. It is very difficult when you
I don't
trying
think you should
to
sugarcoat it.
trying to
It's not meant
pursue
to be easy.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it's if it was easy, everyone would do it. Trying to find a balance between having like these creative passions that you feel like you have to do because there's something inside of you, for better or worse, that you feel like you have to get out, while also trying to do a 9 to 5, and we're millennials, so it's a 9 to 5 and whatever side project you also have to do, because gas is expensive, and then you have to be a good husband and a father and take care of the house and what all that entails. It's definitely hard to find a balance, but it's basically like if it's something that calls to you, like you have to make the time for it. um that if that means you got to get up early or you got to stay up late, like you have to find the time, and like even if it means if you got to make it like a schedule. I know like that's difficult for like creative people to hear because some people just want to work when the spark hits them, right? But like sometimes you do just have to be like, okay, I'm going to get up tomorrow at 5 a.m. and at 5 a.m. I'm going to write, or I'm going to sit at the computer and edit, or I'm going to get up and storyboard, or like I'm going to get up and read something. You just have to kind of make it a schedule or a routine and put in the work.
yeah,
Um,
that's so important. Yeah,
There's a discipline I think that kind of develops for people that are really going to have longevity in this field. Field of entertainment is just kind of what I'll gloss it over and say. Um, there's a lot of things that come to mind for me when I ask people this question, because I think one, there's never always a straight answer to it. I mean, it's always kind of changing, as your project and as your life is kind of evolving over time. But I definitely agree just with what Adam said at the beginning, which is just, the love part of it. I mean, you really have to just start with, I just purely love this art. I love this art form. I love how it brings people together, the conversations it produces, the imagination behind it. I mean, you can continue, continue, continue. But if you don't have that, you certainly are not going to, I think, have longevity, purely in the long run for being able to do this. And the other thing that I would say is also, it is important to have, uh, whether you want to call it validation, or just words of affirmation from other people that are in the community of this space, to kind of keep you motivated and keep you going, because that's something I have ran into myself, as, whether you want to call me an aspiring podcaster or creator myself. Um, you sometimes have to ask yourself that question of like, what is, to what Adam said earlier, like that level that I'm trying to get to, or am I even trying to get to an attainable level? Like, where am I kind of trying to land at in this space? And is it going to be at a place where it's like, yeah, I'm content with that? Right. And that's a
right.
challenge. That's tricky.
Yeah, yep. And sometimes I talk about the love part of it, but sometimes there are moments where you will say, I don't necessarily love this.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, writing, when I was in my 20s, there would be days I'd get up and I'd be like, I'm so inspired. And I would just write and write and write.
Did you actually say that out loud? Or is this an internal monologue?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yep. Yeah, my wife is like, I need to use the bathroom, get out. So, yeah, there and as you kind of continue writing, you're gonna learn that you're not always gonna be inspired, and sometimes you just have to, like Bo said, make that schedule and say, "I'm gonna write for an hour."
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know what I'm gonna write yet. It might be terrible. It might be great. But I just gotta make sure words are being put on paper. And I'll do that for an hour. I've done that for 15 minutes. Told myself I'm going to do 15 minutes of writing a day. and it doesn't matter what it is. I know I'm not setting any expectations about how good it's going to be. I'm just going to
Mhm.
write. And amazingly, that has resulted in stuff I've really, really liked more often than not. When you give yourself the freedom to sort of fail and say like, this can be
Yeah.
garbage, it's okay. It releases that sort of obligation in your mind to create something great, and it ends up being great in a weird way. So your brain is kind of like being creative without you realizing it. You're just there to accomplish a,
Mhm.
a chore. And so those are the kinds of times where, if you're not feeling inspired, it does feel like work. Um, but if you can get yourself through those moments, the actual finally creating part is so incredibly rewarding.
Mhm.
It's That's enough to keep me going for a year. Writing a good script over a period of 3 months is enough, I'd say, to keep me going for 5 years. Like to say, wow, I wrote that. Can I actually get this made? Uh, you know,
Something
so it
something else well, something else I think that you touched on, whether you meant to or not, was talking about expectation, I think, that you set for yourself.
Yeah,
And I'm sure both of you guys could certainly have opinions on this because I know, at the end of the day, the process starts and stops with you, right? I mean, like, you have to be the person that motivates yourself. You got to put the work in, as we talked about, the discipline, etc. But I mean, you have to be the person that channels that.
yeah,
And in order to do that, there is an expectation, I think, that people set for themselves on this. And they're just like, I'm going to, set this high bar for myself and I'm going to do it. And sometimes that's great because it's a fantastic motivator and it pushes you to go past people because there is a competitiveness sometimes to this field of, you got to be first, you got to release stuff quick, I got to put out content and things like that. But
yeah.
on the flip side of that, expectation can also be dangerous because then you're setting yourself up sometimes for failure or a personal, I'm not respecting myself because I'm not reaching this either unrealistic level I've set for myself or whatever. And then you get so focused on that it actually kind of dilutes and gets in the way of, pure creativity where, you're not setting an expectation. You have a sense of freedom and you're just able to go with the process and see what it produces. And like you said, Adam, I think sometimes when you kind of put those, standards aside or, these notions in your head aside and just kind of focus on the pure creative process and just be like, I'm going to allow myself to be free and see where this goes, mistakes and all. I mean, that's when some of the greatest stuff gets made, I think, in film.
Creativity is such a fickle thing. We have our superficial reasons for wanting to write something. Like I think Beau and I went into the last minute to midnight saying like we want to write this really cool noir, and we're gonna play with this genre. We're gonna have fun. That's sort of sitting on the conscious part of your brain. Subconsciously, your mind is doing things that you're not even aware of with this genre, and when we got to finally finishing the film, we're like, "Oh, this is actually maybe what this film is about," and we never knew that. But if you don't allow your brain to sort of play with the possibility of what all the thing you're working on can be, you'll never know that. If you stick to that expectation of no, this has to be a perfect genre film,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have gotten to the point where the movie like does the weird thing that it does at the end that I can't talk about.
Well,
So
yeah, it's also I think a lot of people, a lot of storytellers, I should say, some storytellers will go into writing thinking like, this is the message I have, and this is the theme, and this is what I want to
Hmm.
say. And then they'll come up with the story and the characters and the plot around that message. And then it comes out maybe a little preachy, like maybe a
Hmm.
little on the nose with what they're trying to say. So like, what I like to say is the best way to go is to start with characters and problems, and then wait for your theme to like reveal itself.
yeah, and a lot of people too, I've found a lot of people in film school, we've had this discussion. They confuse themes with thesis. So, in my opinion, a theme is a very, very broad sort of thing. It's usually one word. So, like a movie, I guess, like Saving Private Ryan. A lot of I think younger filmmakers would be like, "Oh, the theme is that war is bad, or that
Hmm.
violence, begets violence." I get it. Those, in my opinions, are statements or thesis sort of elements.
Mhm.
A theme in my understanding is a broad term like love or war or death.
Paranoia, probably for
Very, yeah,
ours.
very, very. And so if you have to, in your mind while you're writing, you have to say, I can have a movie with a theme that's about something that doesn't need to say something. Uh,
Mm.
and I think in with Last Minute to Midnight, we our sort of theme is that is about power, morality. Those are kind of our themes. And then the passion statement or the thesis under it is that like power corrupts. That's more of the statement.
Mhm.
Um, so when you're writing, you gotta I think try to set those things aside, like what Beau is saying. I don't want to monopolize that point, but yeah,
No, just talk about how I'm right.
yeah, yeah. Beau's right.
Speaking of Beau, you said I think Beau in the email to kind of get this set up that I don't know if you use like a hashtag or something like that. I felt like you did. What
Oh,
Norvember?
Noirvember.
Is this a thing? This real?
It's kind of a thing.
Beau's making it
If
a
you're a
thing.
film if you're a film noir person, you'll be you'll know about Noirvember.
Because
Um,
I'm familiar with No Shave November. That's always
yep.
the one I'm most familiar with. I
Beau's
I, I
another
can't say
one
I
that
love
I
that
won't talk
one.
So
about.
one of the courses I teach at Hawkeye at the moment
Mhm.
is social media for business. And in teaching that course, I found that every single day is some kind of day. If it's like, chocolate
Mhm.
pudding day, there's always a food for sure. But if it's like chocolate pudding day or national kite day or international take your dog for a walk day, there's always something. So yes, with No Shave November, you also have Noirvember. Um, yeah. So there's always something to
There's this
celebrate.
thing called No Nut November where
I was about
you
to say it,
you don't eat
but that's
legumes.
also something that people
You don't
celebrate.
eat,
You
yeah,
don't eat
nuts or
nuts.
acorns or yeah. That's what I understand
You
No Nut
abstain
November to be.
from nuts.
That
It's
I
also the
the,
time of the year where the squirrels are like burying their nuts, and so I think it kind of goes along with preparing for winter.
I certainly know that I'm in the company of creatives right now because I definitely had a moment where I'm like, this episode might take a different turn than what I was
Yeah, and you should
expecting.
let it, just don't
Yeah,
fight it.
let the unexpected in. That's how it goes.
Let
I
let
I I,
let the thesis reveal itself.
I did see because I couldn't help myself, Bo. I did Google. I'm like, what is the national days today? The first one that came up is that apparently today, November 11th, is when this is being recorded, is World Science Day for Peace and Development. I'm not
Sure.
sure who sets the standard for that, but
Oh, that's
hey,
awesome.
I mean
It
that's nice.
also might be Veterans Day.
Yeah, actually, that is
I
correct. I
think
feel
that one
like.
is probably a little bit more well known.
Yeah.
Well, the image I'm looking at is that Veterans Day apparently also goes along with National Sunday Day, not confused with the day of the week, but like the ice cream
Yeah.
treat.
That's funny
Apparently,
that
that's also
National
today.
Sunday Day is not on a Sunday.
That's true. I feel like that's a bad call. People that set that day. Uh, okay. Final thoughts that you guys have on whether it is talking about Last Minute Till Midnight, which again, say that date again so when people can find it.
November 16th at 7 p.m. Central Standard
Beautiful.
Time on YouTube. Beau J. Batterson presents. Also, I recently posted sort of a behind the scenes video. If you kind of want to, learn more about the making of and how it came to be.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, November 16th. That's what you
Yep.
just said. Believe so. I will make sure, of course, all the information for that is in the description of this episode, and also when I promote it, I will be sure to channel that so you can't miss it. You
Excellent.
can't miss when
And
the date of this is going to be.
and if you miss it, it is on YouTube. Just you can check it out at your leisure. But 7 p.m. is when we're having the launch party. When I'll be there in the comments, answering any questions that people may have. If they want to chat
Sure.
about the film. So
Adam, where can people find you
Oh, like
around?
I don't give up my residential address, but
Oh, I was hoping
uh
for street address, like exactly where.
no, you can go to adamorton.com or dreamcitycinema.com. Those probably the best place to find me. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, for Dream City Cinema's newsletter, we're always looking for actors and auditions and people to help do stuff on films.
And really, in general, like even if you've never been a part of a film and like you want to be able to help in any way, if you've got
the
a
best
cool
way to learn.
location, if you've got if you've got money, but like if you've got like something cool that you think might help out a film, like join Adam's newsletter.
I also one thing I'll put out there on this. I mean, one, I love that you guys are not just putting the classic plugs of like find me on here and this and that, but you're also offering opportunities and ways for people that are listening to get involved with the creative process with you guys directly, which I really think is actually really important that people are inviting with this community and not have it feel like it's like some cliquey thing that you got to know somebody that knows somebody to kind of try to get your in. I mean, eventually, if you're gonna get some real respectful work and stuff like that, I mean, you gotta prove it with your work. I get that, but I never want people to be deterred from like almost like when we talked about Beau before we hit record on like entering the graphic novel store of like where do I begin with this world? It's like let's give people a pathway to get in here, especially in the Midwest.
What's really cool nowadays, because Adam and I have said we've been doing this for a long time. I compared to where Iowa Film was when we started, I think it is much more collaborative and easier to meet people who are willing to work together to put out something, cool. I think when we first got into it, it was very cliquey and it felt like there were these different regions and different parts of the state where it was like, oh, that, those people over there, they don't make good stuff. We make good stuff. Their stuff's bad. But like now, and I don't know if it's just, post-pandemic mentality of like coming together, we're stronger as one, the expression the rising tide lifts all ships, right? Like I feel like nowadays it is much more of a better space to come together with people you have never met before and being like, hey, you do cool stuff, I also do cool stuff, let's do cool stuff together.
Something I always try to throw out to that as well, talking about just people doing cool stuff in this space and whatnot. You mentioned, of course, which I did like, Beau, that you're just like money's important. I mean, it definitely is to get the stuff to happen.
Yeah.
But that is always something I have heard sometimes, whether it is people that like maybe volunteer for like nonprofits, because in my own day life and like my day job and stuff, volunteerism is a big part of stuff that I do. But I always try to tell people it's like, even if you can't afford something, you might have a skill that you can lend to a project. In other words, it's like you're trading service per se. It's not necessarily going to be straight up funds, but like if you have a skill that you can lend to a project and help with that, I mean, there's hours and time that goes into that. I mean, there is I mean, for lack of a better word, a financial price that kind of comes with that it might not be monetary up front. But you can certainly get value from allowing people to help out with stuff, especially if they can't afford it right off the get-go.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like talking about money is awful and it's like the least, fun part of filmmaking. It's a little soul crushing to be honest, but it's also like, when you get people to, it's never to like, so people can be rich and put the money in their pocket, right? It's just like, oh, people are coming, we need to feed them. We have to have food on set. We have to pay for gas. You're doing a project that involves makeup. We have to buy the makeup.
Right.
Like there's just all these, no one's trying to get rich off of making, a short film on the weekends, right? But
hang on, I'm listening. My cat is destroying the back of my futon. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, Beau and I are gonna run the podcast now while he deals with the cat for a second. Beau, like you're saying, like
good.
if you had like someone offering you $250,000 to make a movie and you wanted to make money, like the way smarter thing to do would be to buy some real estate and
Right.
like making films. It's a thing that brings people together for sort of something bigger.
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, it does. I mean, because without an audience to, of course, take in the work and share it with people. I mean, this is a communal, art form and whatnot. I mean, like you're not just making stuff so one person can watch it. You want a lot of people to watch it and connect with it and inspire them and just kind of keep the ripple effect of creativity going onward and onward and onward. Definitely.
One of the things I loved about doing Amelia 2.0 was just once we put the word out there and we were on the news, like this is what we were making. These are
Hmm.
sort of the known names that were attached to the project. It was so cool to see people come out and audition for that. I think, we had over 150 auditions, and most of those people ended up as extras, and we didn't give them speaking lines just because there just weren't that many in the movie. It was so cool to, like, see them come onto set and to give them an opportunity. Like, a lot of the people involved in that film, that was their first time, and so that's a really rewarding part about making films is seeing what it inspires in other people.
Hmm. I really also liked. Now, I have not, for the record, I have not sadly seen Amelia 2.0. I am aware that it can be found like online, like I can watch it. It's probably not that
Yeah,
hard to
yeah.
to find. But I did notice because I was looking at some of the cast on that. Good Lord, cats are just driving me crazy today. Sorry, but when I was looking over the cast, I did notice that you got Chris Ellis in the movie,
Yeah,
and he is what I would just call. I mean, most people would just be like, "Oh, that's one of those that guys," where it's like
yeah,
I've seen him in so many things. Professionally, we might call that person a character actor, somebody that can just kind of seamlessly be in damn near any genre, and like when you see them, you're just like, "Oh, like this movie's
yep.
automatically better because this person just lends such personality and credibility to the movies." I was curious, and I know we're over time, but do you guys have thoughts on like just like that notion of like character actor? I mean, like, do you consider this to be like a term of endearment when somebody is kind of recognized as like a that guy, or do you think like they're pained on the inside, going like, why am I not like on the poster with Tom Cruise? Like, what's going on right now?
Well, there's problems that come along with that role of being, the poster character.
Yeah.
Like, I would argue that uh there's sort of less creativity in that way. And Chris Ellis is one of the nicest people I've ever met. And he loves what he does, and every day, that he's on a film set is he says, um, it's a chance to be creative. And so I don't know about him personally
Hmm.
wanting to be more. I think he is very much in it for the art and for the expression.
Yeah. Kind of
Yeah,
goes back to that love. It kind of goes back to that love thing that we're talking about, though. Just to kind of be the fuel that kind of runs throughout the creative process, especially with movies. I mean, like most people that are really like, without sounding corny, like a true believer of this. They're not doing it for the check. I mean, they do it because they like the community, they like the partnerships that are formed, the relationships that come, and of course, the stories ultimately that are told. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and well, here's kind of a cool thing about that too. So Chris
Okay.
Ellis was a an actor in a film called October Sky, based on a book of the same name
Yeah, the
about.
Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
Yeah, yeah, based on Homer Hickam, was a boy growing up in a coal mining, I think it's coal mining,
Uh-huh.
town. And I've read the book. It was many years ago, and I've watched the movie like 15 times. And it's been a while, so the details of the plot are a little foggy to me. But
Mhm.
uh, when they went and shot that film, they met with a lot of those real people that their characters were portraying. And
Mhm.
same with Apollo 13. He was in Apollo 13. That one film experience that he did introduced him to so many people, to where like 15, 20 years later, he still goes out to those towns. I believe he actually met Homer Hickam. He goes out and celebrates with all the cast members of Apollo 13. They have like this like background actors club.
That's
And there's this
awesome.
community of people. I forgot where October Sky was set, but he goes out to that state
Mhm.
and they have like a yearly celebration. It's really cool. And
I
that's the
thi
kind of thing I think, as a star, like a poster person, as you mentioned, I
Yeah.
don't think they get to do those kinds of things.
No, because there's also, I mean, there's a whole conversation to be had on like the anonymity that comes with, fame, or lack of anonymity, I should say, because people,
Right.
when you're at that level, it's like you can't even go to a grocery store because you'll just get, flogged, or some crazy
Right.
fan will do something horrible. Um, but um, probably the last thing I would say just on the character actors and talking about, just longevity, kind of tying back into that. If you are if you're able in, the entertainment industry, the film industry to sustain a career for 30, 40, plus years, I mean, bit part or not, or, you're on a marquee poster or whatever. I mean, like longevity in this thing, especially with all the changes in technology and how people consume entertainment. I mean, that to me
Yeah.
is like the biggest success, whether you're on that front facing poster or not. It's like you've been able to be steadily working in this industry all this time. I mean, that right there is success.
Yeah, and you have to define success for yourself too. You have to say, okay, this is what I'm going to be, and this is what I'm happy with. That's a
Yeah.
conversation every artist needs to have.
I'm happy with this conversation right now. So I'll say that.
Cool. Yeah.
Crushed it.
Okay. I know I said final thoughts about 20 minutes ago, but this really is like the actual final thoughts part. Do either of you guys have anything else that you would like to say, either to the audience, to the world, anything like that?
Well, I'll mention the next few projects I'm working on. One I have kind of in the works, and one that's just finished and soon to be released. But I don't want to step on what Beau has. Maybe I'll. Do you have anything, Beau?
No, you go first.
Okay. So I recently finished a 47-minute sort of short feature or long short, if you want to call it that, movie called In the Silence. It's making a little festival run. We did like 4 premieres here in the Eastern Iowa area, and it's gotten some pretty cool audience reactions. And look for that to come out sometime within the next year on Amazon. Actually developing a feature film right now called Inside, tentatively titled that. If you want to be a part of it, I mentioned this before. Go to Dream City Cinema and find my newsletter link and sign up for that, or follow Dream City Cinema on Facebook. And those are the things to kind of look for. If you want to see Amelia 2.0, it's currently on YouTube for free. If you don't mind a couple of ads every now and then, so just Google that and it'll show up pretty easily.
Awesome.
And of course, the last minute till midnight, November 16th at 7 p.m. is the watch party, Central Standard Time. We'd love to have you tune in and check it out and hang out with us. It's amazing performances by Jessica Denny, Angela Billman, and Scott Humiston. It's in its limited festival run. It picked up various awards, be it best short, best sci-fi short, visual effects, nominated for performances. It's definitely got some love and attention from the people who have seen it. So it'd be great if we could get a few more eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
Well,
Good
if anything else, I'll say I hope that this podcast, of course, helps to get those extra eyeballs and ears onto this project, and you guys just in the work that you're doing. So I appreciate both of you very much for coming on here. Think it was a fun conversation. We talked
appreciate you for having us, and I would love to bend your ear later too. So always give us a call. This conversation has done more than I thought it would. Not that I didn't expect great things, but like I'm happy to have talked to